This is going to be the very first episode of a new YouTube channel I'm making. I'm your host, Josh. The channel is going to be called What Comes Around Grows Around, and we're going to basically be going over my garden as I have it now and as it progresses, and I'm going to be taking you through all the different things that I'm growing, how I grow them. We're going to be talking about a lot of different small space growing techniques. We have, I have a bit of a small growing space to work with, but don't be discouraged. That should not stop you from pursuing your gardening hobby. It's a great hobby, and we're going to be looking into how to take care of it. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start our tour of what we have growing here on the property with the front yard and with some of the ornamental plants we have. So right here, but this is a Plumeria. If you guys have never seen it, it's a plant that's native to Hawaii, and it is a very beautiful plant. It will tend to have either white, yellow, or pink flowers, and they're very fragrant. They'll come out of the growing tip right here if you want to come in a little bit closer. So right here, as you can see right now, our plant is kind of still producing new leaves and everything. It had a little bit of a setback. It had some root damage, but it's recovered from that, and it's growing really nice. So if you want to look at this leaf right here, I can point out like one problem that it had. So you can see these little black marks all over this plant. What this actually is this is a fungus problem. This is called black spot. And basically what I did is I just treated it, if you want to come up, I just treated it with some organic fungicide. I'll actually show it to you guys later. And it kind of just cured it up. So on the bottom of the leaf here, you'll see all the black, but there's no bumps on it or anything. This thing has been dead. This leaf is healthy now. It's just discolored. So the new leaves, you can see, they're growing in very nice. There's no damage on this plant at all. So now we're over here with another variety of Plumeria we have. This one grows a lot differently. It kind of just grows a ton of leaves, as you can see. This one did have a little bit of pest pressure. One thing you'll see on Plumerias a lot is they get something called rust fungus. It's like this orange fungus right here. You can see there's a couple of flecks of it left. You can kind of brush it off, but the best way to get rid of it is with an organic fungicide, which again, I will show you. This thing used to be really infested, but now as you can see, this plant is really vibrant and healthy. Okay, so another plant we have right next to this Plumeria here is we have something commonly known as the wandering Jew. This is the purple variety of it, and they call it that because I guess like the biblical Jews, they kind of go everywhere. They kind of go all over the place. And so they grow these really pretty pink flowers. Maybe you can get a close-up shot of that flower, I'm not sure. Yeah, so they grow these really pretty pink flowers, and they kind of just grow crazily if you don't keep them under control. So you have to just constantly be pruning these. But they don't really care about soil condition or water or anything. They just need full sun. Give them a little drink every now and again, but they're gonna do fine, and even if you really forget about them. So they're a great house plant to have. We do have another one over here. This one is in a little watering can, and it's funny because this watering can in particular, it doesn't have any actual bottom. So if I pull this up, you can see it's really stuck in the ground. So this plant's actually just growing in the ground. It just kind of looks like it's in a pot. So here you see one of the two bromeliads we have on the property. When I first started kind of managing the landscape here, this plant was really suffering, and as you can see right now, this is like a deep, vibrant green, all the new growth all over. You can tell it's new just by like the more inward growth. So like you can see the new shoots here. You can see how deep green these leaves are. And on some of the lower leaves, you can see how they had a bit of yellowing. And these are really much older leaves, but all of the leaves, including the older ones, they have this really nice velvety feel. They have no pest pressure. And eventually, if you keep up a bromeliad, it's going to grow a really large flower called an inflorescence, and it's going to, you know, get maybe this tall, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So we're waiting for that, and when it happens, we'll keep you updated. One of the biggest reasons that people like to watch growing videos is they like to see things grow to their end of life, and then you get a nice harvest, right? Well, one of the things we have ready to harvest are these sunflowers here. Now you're looking at them and you're going to be like, wow, Josh, why are you showing me a dead sunflower? Well, actually, this plant isn't fully dead. You can see at the bottom, its leaves are crisping up really bad. It is dying from the bottom. However, the reason it's dying is because it has done what it's supposed to do. It has produced its flower, and now all throughout here, we have ripe to eat sunflower seeds. I can crack that open, or I can just eat it whole. Now, normally I don't like eating the shell, so I just spit out the shell. But they taste great, and honestly, we're probably going to roast a bunch of them, and a few of them we're going to regrow into beautiful sunflowers, because this little variety, this is called a teddy bear sunflower. This little variety only gets about 3 feet tall, and they grow in about 2 months if you take good care of them. So you're going to have beautiful sunflowers and a great summer treat. So what we have here is we have your very classic money tree. I feel like almost every office in America has one of these growing in their space somewhere. If you want to look down here, you can see how the trunk, when we bought it, was originally braided. And when you braid the trunk, it kind of becomes like an ornamental bonsai plant. We chose not to braid it, mostly because we want the plant to get nice and big and full of these giant leaves that it has here. And it's just a really pretty plant to have. Next to it, we have a couple interesting plants. Here, this is a aloe vera variegata, which is basically just means a variegated aloe. And if you're wondering why it's rocking so much, it has a whole bunch of babies, or as we call them, pups, growing off the mother plant. And in a future video on the channel, we're actually going to be taking these out, putting them in their own little pots, and letting them have a good start on life. And we're going to reseed this plant so it stops wobbling and has a bit better foundation. Next to it, we have a very young mango tree. This tree was grown from seed. This is a true to type or heirloom seed, and this is going to produce a golden mango or an altufa mango. It's a mango from Mexico. It's very delicious, and it's, I'd say, maybe a little bit bigger than me making a fist like this. So it's a little small, but it has a smaller seed than most mangoes, so you still get a good amount of flesh. It's very tart, and it's very sweet. Not very stringy at all, and I would totally recommend giving it a try. Over here, we have a desert rose. Usually you'll see these plants have not very much foliage, and they'll have like 1 or 2 really big flowers. Now, this plant has flowered for us before, but since it's starting to get summer and it's really hot, they kind of stop flowering. But this plant, since we're in Florida, it's able to continue to produce this beautiful foliage, and it will do so all year long. So we're hoping it will flower again when it starts cooling off, but for now we have this really nice little plant. And this plant in particular, you can't let this one get too wet. If it gets too wet, it's gonna die. Most plants you want to make sure they have a lot of water. You don't want to underwater. This plant, you underwater, it's gonna be fine. So this plant that I'm showing you here right now, it's got these really interesting cupping leaves, right? And this plant is actually called a Madagascar widow's thrill, or a calancho is the scientific name for it. That's actually what you'll normally hear it called, because Madagascar widow's thrill, come on, are you really gonna say that? It produces these really large bunches of flowers. The flowers themselves are small, but the bunches could be, they take up like this whole surface of like one of these stems. And unfortunately, it did just stop flowering, so we can't show it to you. But when it starts flowering, I will definitely make it available. A plant that is flowering is our flamingo lily, or flamingo flower. So what's interesting about this plant is that even though this looks like a flower to you, technically the only part that's a flower is this little orange stem coming out. This is one of the younger flowers, and then here, the greener one, this is one of the older flowers. And then over here, this giant aloe that we have, this is called a Barbados aloe. What I would continue using your aloe vera gel for is to treat burns, as you would expect. The stuff you buy and put in your fridge that they mix with alcohol, you can use that stuff, it's nice and cooling. But the stuff from the plant works just as great, and you can grow it very easily. Aloe loves any conditions, any growing conditions at all. It doesn't like full sun, but even if you give it the worst conditions, it's really hard to kill. Okay, everybody, so now here we are in the backyard. In the backyard, we have a lot more edible plants growing. We do have some plants that I didn't get to show you up front. You'll see them in a future episode. We have a lot of other things that are edible growing up front, but they're very young, so I'm going to cover it separately. For more established plants here, you'll see next to me we have this beautiful tomato plant. This is a cherry tomato. This is called I believe it's a cherry red cherry tomato. I will correct that in the description down below if I was wrong. This was grown from seed. This thing is getting very big, as you can see, and it's going to very soon start fruiting for us. It's about 2 months old now, and I'm really enjoying the healthy growth. For tomatoes, you do have to support them with the trellis. You do need a large pot size. If you're going to grow in a container, you can grow in the ground, of course. But again, we're talking about small space growing here, so it does need fertilizer all the time. I use a liquid fertilizer. I've also given it some eggshell puree. I will explain that later in a future video on growing tomatoes. But there's a lot of good resources that are out there on growing tomatoes specifically that cover these type of topics. I might link a few that I like in the description below. Next to it over here, we have a blackberry plant. This is a, ooh, geez, I don't remember the variety of this one. I have a tag on it. I'll leave it in the description.
Sweet pea or whatever.
Sweet pea?
Something sweet.
Maybe it's sweet crisp or sweet pea. I forget exactly what it is. I'll leave it in the description. But anyway, this blackberry we've actually just bought at our local Lowe's. And this plant has been growing very, very, very vigorously. You can see here the bright green leaves from about here on has been growing since we bought this plant. And we bought this plant less than 3 weeks ago. So it is producing a couple blackberries. We ate a few of them. They weren't very good. And I think the reason for that was this stem that it's growing on is very old. This stem is going to die very soon. And how blackberries work is every 2 years they produce fruit canes that produce lots of fruit. Each year they produce more and more. The roots live for a very long time, but the canes themselves come up and start to die. Again, I'll cover that in a more specific video later on. But we're very pleased with this. The reason we're not growing this one from seed, by the way, is because blackberries tend to be hybrids. And if you grow a hybrid from a seed, what's usually going to happen is you're going to get fruit that you don't really want. It might not be good. It might not even fruit at all. It might be covered in thorns, and we just don't want to mess with that. So we buy well-established rootstock from a nursery, and you're good to go. So over here we have, to be fully honest, we've had this palm tree for quite a while, and I have no idea what species of palm tree it is. If somebody wants to take a guess, let me know down in the comments. But it was really struggling because this pot didn't have drainage holes in it. But now, if you want to look, geez, this is heavy. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know.
No? But anyway, there's a lot of drainage holes. We actually just kind of broke through the bottom. So make sure your plants have drainage holes, otherwise they're going to die. Especially plants like palm trees that really don't want a lot of water. Now next to it we have this really interesting thing. This is called a Weigela variegata, or just a variegated Weigela. That is the common name and the scientific name for this plant. It grows these really interesting leaves. Maybe you want to zoom in on one of these leaves. I don't know, one that you find really interesting. This plant was really tiny and it kind of just exploded. It's very water hungry. It doesn't really need that much fertilizer, which is nice, but it's really pretty, and if you like ornamental plants, I don't think you can beat this. Next to it we have some more growing plants. We have a couple jalapenos. This one has a disease on it called scale. It's really bad on this leaf in particular. I might have to just get rid of that leaf, and then it's a little bit less bad everywhere else. I've been treating it with an organic pesticide, and you'll note that I keep using organic products. I'll explain that later. But I would strongly recommend sticking with organic products if you're just doing home scale gardening, because your food's gonna taste a lot better. So it will take a lot more treatments, but this plant will come back. The one next to it doesn't have any problems. They're the same age, but this one is going to be growing a little bit faster. You can actually tell that it's growing faster because the young leaves on it are much greener than these ones, where these are a little bit, black and fringed. And that's because of the pest pressure. Then the other peppers we have is we have this blooming cayenne pepper. You can see there's flowers that are already closing and the peppers are going to start forming. And then we have new buds all over the plant. Then over here we have another cayenne. And then next to it we have 2 banana peppers. This one's a bit younger. They actually grew together, but this one was just a much healthier plant. But this one's coming along too, not flowering yet. This one is just covered. Look at this. Look at the top of this plant. Absolutely covered. And then we also have, we were just talking about it before off camera, we have one pepper here that the flower already closed, and you can see the green of the pepper starting to show up right there. So really excited about that. The last plants that I wanted to talk about here, this is called a dwarf umbrella tree. And this is just a nice ornamental. People like to use it as bushes. I'm sure you've seen this. This is a crown of thorns plant. I do unfortunately believe that the sickness on the jalapeno peppers is from this plant. This is a very old plant that was in very poor conditions. It's now fine, but it was flooded, and when plants are unhappy, such as when a succulent like this plant is flooded, they tend to get lots of disease pressure. So some of these leaves are very sick, and we think that that is where the disease on the jalapeno came from. I don't know if you can see some of the disease somewhere. Yeah, it's really kind of gross looking. And then this last plant back here, this is a papaya tree. Still not sure what gender the papaya tree is. There's a lot of videos on papaya trees. I can link that as well. They can be hermaphroditic, male or female, and depending on the gender of the papaya, depends on whether or not you're going to get fruit, flowers, or both. This tree was given to me by a friend, and it's been growing really nice. It does need to be transplanted. You can see the pot is only 12 inches. We're going to want to go with a much larger pot. And also when the yellow leaves start coming, just, you know, you can pinch them off if they give. Since this one isn't giving, I'm going to leave it on. Okay, so thank you for tuning into this very first episode, this pilot episode of What Comes Around Grows Around. We are going to be doing a lot more episodes. Expect at least an episode a week. If there's more, I will be sure to let you guys know. We're going to be doing guides. We're going to be doing progression videos. We're going to be doing harvests. We're going to be doing sowing. We're going to be doing care. Maybe even get into making some money on the side with growing plants of your own. So we'll be doing a lot of different videos. Be sure to check that out. Make sure that you like the video if you liked it. Share it with your friends. Subscribe if you want to see more. And until next time, we'll catch you later.